I'm Sam Lagassic.
And I'm Dreadful Dan Gallagher. And we're two old buddies that have lived our life at the edge of the mainstream.
So come join us where things are a little odd. This is the
You've got to believe.
It's alive! It's loose!
This earth of yours will be reduced to a burned-out cinder.
Hi everybody, welcome to ODDCAST Movies, Music and Gaming. And here with me today is Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hello, how are you?
Yes, good, thanks. And today we're going to be doing the gaming section of our podcast, and it is going to be Shadow of the Colossus. So Dan, before we start, what have you been doing this week? What have you been up to?
I've been listening to some Arab Strap. Do you know them?
I've heard the name. I don't think I've listened to any of their stuff, or if I have, I'm not aware of it.
I was in the same boat. They're one of those bands that the name was thrown around a lot. Usually like with Bell and Sebastian and Mogwai. But I was kind of surprised by their sound. One of my friends recommended it, and he said this is basically the sound of a depressed Scotsman singing about his terrible sex. It kind of was that. The bleaker songs were definitely better. He seems like a songwriter who's just better when he's miserable. Sometimes they were a bit more upbeat and hopeful. I was like, no, I don't like that. It's a bit cheesy. I hope he's still depressed.
Arab Strap-on.
Yeah. Well, that's what an Arab Strap is, isn't it? Arab Strap's
I don't know.
It's some kind of sex toy.
Is it?
An Arab Strap.
I thought it would be like a dirty Hitler or whatever.
I beg your pardon. What's that?
You know, a dirty Hitler when you stick your finger into the bum hole and wipe it across your. Do you know? Is that called a dirty Hitler? It's a dirty Sanchez as well, I think, because there was that Welsh MTV show.
Yeah.
I think it was called that.
A more subtle version of that.
Us white supremacists call it the dirty Hitler.
Yeah.
That's a joke. Not a white supremacist. I am white, just not a supremacist.
Supremely white.
I'm very white. Yeah. Awkward. Anything else you've been watching? No, not really.
Just the usual kind of stuff on the History Channel. Adolf Hitler, his great rise.
I was going to say. If anyone was new to this podcast, they'd be like, what the hell have I got myself into?
We're just
I wanted to learn about I just wanted to talk about some games. What I've been doing, I listened to some of the new Mets album, by the way. I've only listened I've listened to the first half about 10 times. And I keep not having the time to just go through to the end. And I think because I like that second track, and I can't remember what it's called, I really love that track. And that's why I keep restarting it. Because I'm like, I want to hear that one again. But generally I found it a lot better than some of the more recent stuff. And I think because they've maybe not made it more mainstream at all, but it's kind of edging towards like the stuff that I liked. It's where it's not just noise. It feels like there's been an element of like songwriting basically behind it a bit more than the previous albums perhaps. And it still feels really hard and raw and tough, which I still like. I think as well, like I'm getting a bit, not sick, but like his vocals and the fact that there's an element of monotony in the sense that it's always up here screaming all the time, blah, 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 or whatever. Like sometimes by the end of the album, I'm just like, okay, it could have been nice to have like a little bit of
Put a sock
variety with that. Yeah, I kind of get it. Like that's his whole thing, but and it works. But I think it worked really well for that first album. But now, like we're like 4 or 5 albums deep. And it's like, yeah, okay, it's kind of grating a little bit, but drums are so good. Hayden Menzies, fucking great, such a great drummer.
It's good to show a bit of musical progression at this stage, because they are kind of all in the same wheelhouse, aren't they?
But yeah, for listening to that, I have watched a lot. So I've been watching a Netflix series called Love on the Spectrum. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's like The Undateables. Did you ever watch The Undateables?
No, I know what that is, though.
No? Yeah, so Undateables is a Channel 4 show where it's basically disabled people going on dates. And there is an element where it's quite exploitative.
That's what I've always thought. I've never watched an episode, but that's what I always thought.
Right. No, well, I watched them. I never watched it just because of that. And then I think like once I was just like, I'm just going to see what it's like, stick it on. And I watched all of them. And to be honest, there is a degree where it's like, it's kind of presented in a way where sometimes it can be a bit funny in its awkwardness. But behind it all, it's very sweet. So there's like an innocence behind it, because they're essentially like, it's like children dating or something like that. But there is like an element of like sadness, because you're thinking, well, these are adults and they're just looking for love and they find it really difficult and they can't, Undateables is a bit different because some of them just have physical disabilities. So they've got like, do you know what I mean? There's like nothing wrong with their social skills. It's that they're in a wheelchair or something like that, or they're disfigured in some way. So there's that. But Love on the Spectrum is about people who are like on the autism spectrum, and some worse than others, put it that way. But again, it's all done like very sweetly and quite nice. And yeah, I'm in two minds about how I feel about it, basically, because I did enjoy it and I watched all of them, but there is still an element where I'm like, I don't know, like it feels a little like we're kind of like not looking down on them, but like we're kind of laughing at the fact that they can't get their heads around these certain social situations. And if it was like the good thing which Love on the Spectrum does, which Undateables doesn't, or Undateables didn't really do it properly anyway, was that they have like actual couples and like love stories that work out in Love on the Spectrum, if that makes sense, or they're already together. And that's nice. Whereas with Undateables, it was like, I don't know, like no one really ends up together. So you're just like, oh, okay, they're just destined to be lonely forever. Whereas with this one, at least there's like a little bit of like, it can work. Like, look at this and all this stuff, which feels a bit more like positive.
There's still that element of like condescension though, isn't there?
Yeah.
I suppose some people say, well, maybe it gives inspiration to other people in a similar situation. But let's face it, the viewing population for those programs were like 99% people just going, oh, good on them. They done all right. I hope they get. I hope they're happy together.
Yeah, but it's it's weird to like watch, and it's totally like voyeuristic, really. But
you watched.
Still, I enjoyed it. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I'm not quite sure. But
you watched all the episodes trying to make your mind up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, completely. But I watched that David Attenborough Netflix thing as well, where he goes through like his life and how the environment's changed and stuff, and that was quite interesting. It was a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit worthy at one point, and like just like at the end, he's like, it's all like doom and gloom, and then he's like, but there's things we can do to like save this, and like his first piece of advice is basically like, well, we're all having children later, which means we're having less children, which means the population isn't going to boom so much. It's like, okay. I'm a big fan of population control, I should say. I think there's too many people in the world. And obviously I'm not, I know it's a pandemic and all this stuff going on, but I joke about how I thought like Thanos was the good guy in Avengers, in the Avengers films or whatever. Dan doesn't understand that reference, but when he clicks his fingers, his whole thing is that he wants the power to get rid of half the
I don't think there's anything to joke about. It's just He is the good guy.
Thanos.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, because we know about the comics, right?
Of course.
He does it in the comics. Yeah, see. Oh, it started as a comic, didn't it? I remember now. Yeah, well, he's like, he's kind of like the anti-hero in a little bit, especially like later on in the comics, which isn't going to happen because he's like dead. Or is he dead? Who knows? Anyway, but so the idea that he's like, there'll be less kids. So, that's a good thing. I was like, okay.
Yeah. That's been his stance for quite a long time now. It sounds like he's softened it a little bit because when he says anything, they rubbish him in the mainstream papers. They go like, really? Dotty old Attenborough says too many people. Sick old misanthropy. Yeah. It's like, well, what he's saying is completely logical and reasonable.
Yeah, well, there are too many people. And it's also, if you ask me, but I don't think, I mean, like, it's the fact that we're living longer and all this stuff. It's all changing. I get it, whatever. And basically he's like, renewable energy, we're going to be, utilizing that soon. And it's like, yeah, true. And I don't know, like, I'm always under the thing of like, obviously, like, environmental impact is very important and all this stuff. And, but we always seem to be like, as humans, like, we will take it up to like the wire and then suddenly we'll just figure out like how we can do something.
Second, third wave.
Technologically speaking.
That's what's required. COVID-20 coming to a 2021 near you.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, we joke about it, but that'll probably be what will happen. But anyway, it was a documentary thing. It was pretty good. And also, like, I do like watching all that stuff. And it's funny because as I was watching it, same with Tess, it's like, the thing is with the Earth is that if we like really, like, we're going to really fuck it up, right? Let's say that all this is true and we fuck the Earth up and all this stuff and it's fucking dead. I was like, it's all going to come back. Like, it's what the Earth does. Like, it was, volcanoes will just throw up more lava and carbon or whatever and all this stuff. And then it will just do a hard reset and it will go back to normal and there'll be like more different species and all this stuff. Like, they're extinct. It's like, well, we'll get new ones.
It'll just be a bit different.
Life finds a way. Yeah, exactly. It's more about we're going to kill ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be like a horse with a fish's legs.
Yeah, well, I don't think that'll happen. There'll still be generally, it'll follow. Well, this is it. Like, this is what people ask. This is what Dawkins. Richard, oh my God, what am I saying? Richard Dawkins, right?
Richard Dawkins.
Yeah, this is what he says, which is like, he finds it interesting if there was a planet with life, which there, statistically speaking, should be, whether it follows the same evolution of life as it does with us. So there will always be humans, basically, or humanoids or whatever, depending on the variables where life can actually exist or whatever. Because that's the way that life will always naturally go. So there's just like one clear direction because life means water, means trees, etc. And it just always kind of goes in that way through evolution, which I find quite intriguing. So
it's nice that he's got all that time to sit around thinking about that. But I've got it on good faith that he hasn't cut his grass in 3 years.
Dawkins. What else have we been watching? God, sorry, we've been going on for ages already. The Challenger series, I think I spoke about it a bit last time.
Oh, yeah.
That was good. I mean, like, NASA done fucked up. Was basically, it should be another title of it. I finished The Boys series 2. The finale was last week. That was really good. Enjoyed that. Anyone that watched that?
I saw a bit of buzz about that.
Yeah, it was really good. I really liked it. I was watching Haunting of Bly House, which is like the sequel or prequel, I guess, of The Haunting of Hill House, the Netflix series, which is based on the books, etc. Blah blah blah. And this one takes place in England, and it's been good. It's not been as good as Haunting of Hill House, which I really loved, but this one's pretty good. And I'm on the second to last episode, and it's getting a bit like, I don't know. There's just not as many like scares or anything, and most of the time, like, he hides things in the frame. So he'll have people standing there or in reflections and all this. So I spend most of the time just like studying the frame and going, oh, there's a ghost. Oh, there's a ghost. Oh, someone back there and all this stuff. So it becomes more of a game. I'm not paying attention to the actual story. Right. Oh yeah, shit. What did they just say? Yeah, so Haunting of Bly House is pretty good. Yeah, if you get a chance to see it.
That reminds me, I saw a horror film actually a few days ago.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know Mario Bava, the Italian horror director?
I've seen one of his films, which was something called like the Mask
Black Sunday?
Yeah, maybe it was Black Sunday, but I think it's called that here, but it was called something different.
Probably, yeah. Mask of something or other, maybe. It's the famous one where she gets the mask, famous opening scene, that mask hammered onto her face. Horrible.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and it's, because that happens, and then she's like, she comes back or something during the course of like, where they're living in this castle or something like that.
Yeah, I can't quite recall. It's been a while since I saw that one. I saw Kill Baby
accuse her
Kill.
of being a witch, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
They accuse her of being a witch.
Yeah, it's medieval times.
Yeah, but she is a witch. That's the thing, isn't it? Like,
I think so. Yeah,
it's like, oh, she's a witch. And she's like, yes, and Satan will destroy all of you, or something. Like, quick, fucking hell, get rid of her. Yeah, it's good. Black Sunday. Yeah.
Anyway, that's not what I saw. I saw Kill Baby Kill.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's one of his later ones. They say it's like the end of the golden age of Italian horror before Argento and Fulci came along. It's quite cool. It's got some like cool kind of like psychedelic experimentation. I think they're trying to do these like trippy dream sequences and things. It's pretty ridiculous. It was good fun.
Yeah.
So
recommend it.
Yeah, if you like that kind of thing. It's a bit hokey, but it was fun. Yeah. And it's creepy kid and that kind of thing.
Sure, that's always a good thing. Yeah, the only other thing I saw was a documentary called Hail Satan. It's got a question mark at the end, which is about Satanists, basically, but how they don't actually worship Satan. They're just like against religion in America. And they just don't want to be atheists, basically. So they just take the piss and support Satan. And it was quite interesting, but again, it was just a bit like, it's, I don't know, like, it was fine.
Tells you what you already know. Idiots turn out to be idiots.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get what they're doing. And it's like people who are just like weirdos and misfits just kind of find each other, and that's fine. And then when they're like, Hail Satan, and then they're like, yeah, but we don't really believe there's an actual Satan. It's like, and it's like, oh, well, you're just kind of stirring the pot for the sake of it. And it's fine that you have something to believe in and you don't believe in it, but as in like, you just don't want to be an atheist. You want to be like a bit more proactive, like atheism is a bit more passive or whatever. And that kind of makes sense. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, maybe there's like more amicable ways of getting your point across. But at the same time, it's a bit of a business as well, I suppose. But
be constructive.
Don't
find yourself by being, I'm not the thing that I hate.
Yeah.
Find what
and there's
you
also
are.
And there's one faction of it that they talk about near the end where like one of their members basically goes a bit off the rails, and it's like wow, I can't believe I was too extreme for the Church of Satan or whatever they're called, the Satanic Temple.
What does he do?
It's true because
a really horrible part.
Yeah, no, she kind of starts putting on these shows where like spear pig heads onto, spears. And it all gets a bit more like ritualistic and a bit, and she starts shouting like, kill the president or whatever. And then, the Satanic Temple were like, yeah, you can't really do that. That's not really what we're about. We're not actually we're not actually Satanists. Like we are, but we're not really. And yeah, she's like, oh, right, whatever. Like, so she kind of gets into like the more like anarchy, like rebellious side of it rather than the actual kind of more political message behind it, which is that, the difference between God and state and all this stuff. It was interesting. But anyway, fuck, that was a really long one. Let's go into Shadow of the Colossus and let's take a bit of a break. So Dan, Shadow of the Colossus. What did you know anything about this going in? What were your initial thoughts?
I thought that sounds good. Because who doesn't like a Colossus? I didn't know anything about it, and I had a little look around.
Are you talking about your colonoscopy? Or... Sorry.
I
had a little look around.
I had a little look around on the internet. Didn't play it, of course. And I thought, I quite like the sound of this. Sounds a bit more, the pace sounds a bit more my kind of thing. Just roaming around on your horse and finding these mythical titans. And then the sad thing is you have to kill them. I thought, yeah, this looks nice. I can see why you'd want to engage with this.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of background on it. In Japan, it's a Japanese game. In Japan, it was known as Wanda and the Colossus. So a lot of people often title the boy as Wanda, even though he's actually nameless in the actual game itself. Team Ico with the team behind it made it, and it was released in October 2005 in Japan and the USA, and then February 2006, basically everywhere else. In 2011, there was the HD version, which also had Ico in as well, in HD, and that's for the PS3. And you could play it in 3D. And I don't know if you remember, Dan, but I had a 3D TV. And I do vaguely remember playing this in 3D, and it wasn't quite the epic thing that I remember thinking, like, it looked all right, but like 3D gaming just never really took off, did it? The only thing it was really good for was some of like the first person shooters, like looking down the scope and all this stuff, but still it wasn't, it's that whole thing where it's like watching 3D in the cinema. It's just, everything's just so much darker.
Yeah.
Like, turn the fucking brightness up. Then in 2018, they remade it basically from the ground up, for the PS4. And that was by Blue Point Games did that, who are renowned basically for doing, cool remakes, and they're doing the new Demon Souls, which is coming out on the PS5 very soon.
So let me get this straight, Sam.
Yeah,
because I heard about this.
Yeah.
So that one that came out on the PS3,
yeah,
that was a retooling, like a remastering.
Yeah, it was like a remaster. So I should say it came out on the PS2 first, towards the end of the life cycle of the PS2.
So that was probably at the height of its like abilities or something. Was it?
Yes, it was
pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
So then they took that and then so to put this in terms of music, they essentially remastered the album for the PS3.
Yeah.
But then this PS4 one that I see everyone banging on about, the most recent one, they basically re-recorded.
Yes,
they just completely built it from scratch.
Yeah.
From the ground
up.
Yeah,
they knew exactly what they needed to do. They had as many of the assets and all this stuff that went into actually making the game. But essentially they kind of, they re-recorded it at a much higher fidelity.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's good. Yeah. So sometimes when people say like so with the HD remaster, which is still good, it's just kind of like making everything a bit more crisper and all this stuff. But yeah, with the PS4 one and just the fact that everything's moved along so much, you can't take those same like textures and all this stuff and just put and just make them sharper. Like they have to give it more detail and, and things like that, make it a bit more visually interesting because it's for a whole new generation where you can do that and that's expected. Yeah. yeah, so a lot more work goes into that.
So what do you do in this game then?
Well, it's a good point. So let me. Before we do that, just a little bit on Team Ico for people that don't know. The director was this guy called Fumito Ueda, who had made Ico before this, same kind of style, and I'll kind of talk about that a bit later. And then they made The Last Guardian, which I won't go into, but there's a whole thing about that and how long it took. But again, it's kind of the same style. So this guy's kind of seen more as like an auteur, let's say. He's only really done these games. So the boy basically, so what you do, right? So the boy, let's call him Wanda for the sake of it, or whatever, or the boy.
A fish called Wanda.
A fish called Wanda, yeah. A boy called Wanda. Battles 16 Colossi. And they're
Colossi?
Colossuses.
Wow, Colossi.
Colossi, the pluralism of Colossus.
That is true, because I checked that earlier. And when I typed plural into Google, the first suggested result was plural of Colossus. So there must be millions of people playing this game, just double checking.
I think it's probably got your browser history by that point.
I've never browsed for Colossus before.
Oh, that's weird.
It's not,
maybe they were in preparation for this podcast, this episode. We broke Google. But yeah, all of them are very different from one another for the most part. And yeah, the idea is that once these Colossi are defeated, he can bring this girl who he is apparently fallen in love with, he can bring her back to life. So they're kind of a bit sparse on details, because essentially like you open out and he's come along with this woman who's dying, and this voice, and there's like two voices kind of speaking at the same time, and it's speaking like a different language. To us, it might sound a bit Japanesey, but apparently it's not. It's just some kind of made up language. It's basically like, yes, we will bring her back to life, but you need to go kill these guys, and then, we can do it. It's cool. And by the way, here's a sword or whatever. Or no, he's got a sword, with him. It's like, hey, here's a sword. And it's like, yeah, great, cool.
Do you know what I like about that? It's just so simple. It's not convoluted. It reminds me of the storyline to Altered Beast. It's just arise from your grave and rescue my daughter. And that's it. And then you just go about killing stuff, and you kind of have a sense. If I go on this killing spree, that will somehow bring about a happy return to her father.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's a very simple premise. I like the fact you don't know what's happened before. No idea, like any of that stuff. So, and I love things like that, where it's like you feel like it's a big world, but they've just focused on like this chapter of what's happened in it. And the idea is that, this land is this big forbidden land. It's very desolate. It's huge. There's no life. It's zero life. There's like trees and grass and whatever, but it's like the fact that it's so empty, which it was obviously good for the technology back in the time. Just there's like this real air of, it makes you feel weird. There's the odd like eagle or whatever, and there's little tiny bits, but for the most part, it's completely empty.
Haunting.
Which is quite cool. Yeah, which is really haunting.
Why is it empty?
Well, it's a good point. Don't really know. I think there's an element of, for one thing, they weren't able to put stuff in. Technologically speaking, they couldn't really fill it with anything. But I like the way they kind of leaned into it and made it, because it's still like you've got like quite lush green land, you've got mountains, you've got deserts, you've got huge kind of architectural amazing like buildings and like colosseums and all this. So it's not as if there's like nothing to do, or it's like completely the same. It's all fairly still a bit varied, but it also makes you feel like when you're with your horse, it's because it takes so long to kind of get to where you need to go, it kind of adds to the build up, because that's all you're doing, is that you are going to kill a boss, and then you kill that boss and you wake up back at the shrine, and then you go out again on your horse, Agro, who's probably my favorite horse in anything ever. Agro. Just hearing that like a million times. And that's it. So you're kind of that kind of trying to get there. Basically, it's all part of like the slow build to these huge epic battles. But the fact that there's like nothing really there for you to interact or do anything with can seem a little boring to people. But for me, I think it kind of makes you realize that this is like a forbidden, like mystical land, and that it's quite natural, because there's definitely like a certain style to it. Like if you see a lot of these colossi are like made of like rock and stone, and they've got like moss on them and stuff, and it's like you're not sure if they're like buildings or machines. It was
a relief
beings
to see the colossi after several games with these kind of faddish Lovecraftian creatures. To see these kind of they remind me of like Norse or Scandinavian folkloric beasts, like you said, very
like
earthy
and stuff. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, very earthy. Yeah, and it's definitely got a very cool aesthetic. And that's basically the game. So there's an element like, so you use your sword to kind of get you to where you need to go. You kind of follow this beam of light. So you got to make sure you're near sunlight, and then there's places where you have to like get off your horse. You have to climb things. You have to do a bit of platforming, jumping around, holding onto stuff, climbing up, whatever. So there's an element of like, to even get there, you've got to kind of use your head a little bit. There's some certain bits I remember playing through it, like the numerous times I've played it, which can be a bit frustrating because I'm like not sure where I need to go, basically where I'm supposed to go. But yeah, when you kind of figure it out, it's great. And essentially, like each boss is its own mini puzzle. I think Fumito had said that he was thinking of like Zelda.
Yeah.
And he wanted each of these bosses to be its own like mini dungeon. So every time you look at a boss, you've got to kind of figure out, how do I get on it for a start? How am I going to defeat it? And they've got these weak points, which are these like shining blue, they look like tattoos basically. They only come up when you get near them and you stab them with your special sword. And when you stab them, that's their weak point, and all this black oily stuff kind of gushes out, like we were talking about Itchy last week, and the blood that just like it's like OTT blood spurt. It's a bit like that, but with black oil. And then you basically you stab them until they run out of health, and you have to get them in the weak points. So you can very slowly whittle away their health by just kind of trying to knock them anywhere, but it will take you forever. And you have a bow and arrow, and essentially the bow and arrow is really just to kind of get their attention, because they're all just wandering around. Like they're not, that you have to like actively engage with them and kill them. Like they're just doing their own thing. And that's part of like the melancholy, like sadness of it. And you'll see this with like the music and stuff. Like each time you kill one, it basically goes silent. This kind of like very sad, majestic music comes up, and then all this like black oily stuff just gets like absorbed into your body, and even if you try and run away from it, it will like find you and go into you, and then you're like bleh, and you and you're back at the shrine.
Do you feel conflicted when you're engaging in these battles?
That's part of it, because by the end of it, like each time you kill one, there will be a shadow looking down at you, and it's a really cool image, because obviously after a while you get like 15 or 16 and there's just like groups surrounding you just looking down at you, these black shadows, and these black shadows, by the way, are like in Ico and all this stuff, and they're quite they're like part of the style that this guy uses, and yeah, you'll see that he gets like paler, his skin gets a lot paler, and he just like looks sicker as it's going on. So you start realizing that, this isn't good for me. Like I'm not really getting any, like big glory, like power fantasy, like, kills or anything from this. It's all like very sad each time I kill one, and I look like I'm slowly dying by doing so.
But what about you, Sam, the human Sam?
The human Sam.
How's the human Sam feeling when he's slaying one of these majestic creatures?
He died a long time ago. Yeah, pretty good, to be honest. Like, I like the idea that it's like this sad slaughtering this sad big beast. But I like the sense of accomplishment of like, I figured this out and I've taken down this huge thing and I'm just some little kid. I'm literally just this little boy and I've just like slain these like beasts and I'm just like a nobody.
So it's like, not like the boss in a typical game where it's the culmination of the level. It is the game itself is presumably quite long, drawn-out battles where you're, like you say, you're assessing, then again engaging, working out your strategy, and then presumably executing it.
Yeah, it's exactly that. They're pretty much all the same to a degree. Like the first couple of ones are fairly easy. The last one is pretty hard, but it's not really hard. It's more just like longer. But they're all like, I wouldn't say they like increase in difficulty or anything like that. It's a bit of mix and match. But yeah, you're kind of going in and that's the level. Like you got to figure out how you're doing it, the environment that you're in and all this stuff and what you can do to get there. And I should say that, so you've got like, when you actually play, you've got a health bar. You also have like a stamina bar, which, you use for like gripping on. So you'll have to grip and hold on to these creatures and they might like flail around to try and shake you off. And you've got to hold on. If your stamina runs out, you obviously fall off and you lose a bit of health maybe. I don't remember ever really dying because even if you fall from a great height, usually you're all right and your health slowly regenerates anyway. And by the time you've bothered to go through to get back on them, your health's in a pretty good shape anyway. But it's more like if you're like on their shoulder, if they like stop moving, you have to quickly stand up to get your stamina back before it starts moving again. So you got to time your attacks, just right. But yeah, you've literally, you've got jump, you've got a small attack, you've got kind of like a build up, a big attack. You press and hold your attack and he does like a big one, which is what you need really when you're attacking those weak spots, and your grip. And yeah, there's a slightly more tricky aspect with the horse and like trying to use your bow and arrow with the horse and you can ride and jump from your horse. That's a bit more tricky. And that can be annoying sometimes. But that's kind of all it is gameplay wise. And you've got a button to call your horse.
It's quite interesting to me. It sounds really different to me. It's sort of like a quiet game full of sorrow and sort of bathed in pathos.
Yeah, it's very quiet and slow. And the music, if you listen, it's kind of like a traditional Japanese or Eastern, I should say, music with like some classical elements behind it. But it feels and that's what's great about it. It's very small. You're like just this boy. It's a very small story, but it's on a huge epic scale. And keep in mind, like, especially on PS2 when this game came out, you had never seen anything like this before. Not on that big a scale ever, let alone 16 of them as well. And let alone in these huge, because open worlds weren't really a thing either. Like, PS2, you talk about Grand Theft Auto 3 and that was massive. Yeah. And that was very dense with stuff. Yes. But like, but it was like, nothing was kind of felt like it was on this kind of scale before. So that's basically the kind of the gameplay element to it. You've got other little bits, which and other little secrets. Like there's a garden at the top of the shrine, which you can actually get to that you see at the end of the game. But I think if you eat anything from it, you die or something like that. I can't remember. You can eat lizard tails that increase your stamina and some fruit, which increase your health, but you don't really need it. I never did it in any of my playthroughs. It's just something that I could do. And basically the story, you kind of find out, like, I think it's after the 12th Colossi is defeated, you start seeing that you're being chased by people.
What people?
You don't really know. You just think they're obviously trying to stop the boy from trying to bring this girl back to life, trying to stop him getting to where he already is. Huh. And like I think the voice says like, you better hurry up. Like not like this, but obviously, people are coming. So,
it sounds like Nightmare.
And then there's the end sequence. And we'll go over the Colossi in particular in a sec, but like the end sequence is basically when you kill them all. Like what happens again? So each of the statues basically disintegrate each time you kill one of them. and then he will kind of give you a clue as to like where the next one is. So you see these knights or whatever coming to find him. You're not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. Like when it gets like the final boss, your horse has fallen into the sea, and you're like, and that for me was really like, fuck, that was a real kick in the balls. I remember the first time it happened, I was like, I really felt this affection to this horse. That's why it's like my favorite horse of all time. Because it's just you two in this whole thing of this game that you've just been playing for hours. And he's like your mate that's like really fucking helping you out, sticking by you through thick or thin against these like huge things. Then he's like just falling off, and then you feel really alone. Like your companion's gone when you're getting onto that final boss.
My lovely horse.
Yeah. It's quite heartbreaking. So you basically they come in and they're like, oh no, kill him. He's turned into the monster, the bad guy who's been, who has been kept basically in some kind of weird jail here or whatever, this powerful evil being. And they kill him or stab him up or whatever, or go to kill him, I can't remember now. And then he turns into this like big, huge black like devil thing made up of all that like liquid oil stuff. And then you get to play as that, and you start like pounding against all these like knights that are trying to like defeat you, and you're like, I'm big and evil, fuck you, or whatever. And then the leader of these like knights, I'm calling them knights, but they're not, they're just whoever's just turned up, basically uses a magic spell, and it sucks you back in. It sucks the black creature thing back in, and then you with it. But there's like a really horrible / amazing bit in the game that you are able to control where you're kind of clinging onto the floor, and it's like being as if you're like sucked out into space or something, and it's pulling you, and you're trying to like grip onto stuff, and you're just slowly being dragged across the floor, and you're playing it into like oblivion basically. And
how can this be happening?
What do you mean?
This sounds like such a shift in the sort of like the realm that you're...
Yeah, this all happens like right at the end, like the final like 10 minutes. So then you're defeated basically, and the knights are like, let's get out of here. And they run out, and the bridge collapses behind them. So it's like, right, they're like, well, if he survived, then, good luck to him, basically. May God rest his soul, whatever kind of thing. And they fuck off. And then... and then basically what happens, the girlfriend wakes up. She's like, oh, what the fuck's been happening? The horse turns up. He's got an injured leg, poor old aggro. And then they find this little baby where Wanda basically got sucked into, this sunny little baby. And it's got tiny little horns on its head, which is to do with Ico, because Ico, you play a young boy who has horns. And that's a whole other game. So it's all kind of interconnected, or it's supposed to be. And then that's it. And then they go to like this like garden place, and it's her and this baby and the horse, and that's how it ends. So it's very small, very sweet, very weird. It goes again. It's kind of this big epic things, big epic battle at the end, defeating this enemy, and then suddenly it's just like in this like Garden of Eden. It's just like nice, weird. Is it like happy? I don't know. Like what's happened? You're not really sure. You're kind of able to make up your own thing from it. It's that's basically like the story. But it's really nice. It's really kind of sweet. And
it sounds lovely. I'd like to hear more about these Colossi.
Right. Well, let me tell you a bit more about the Colossi. So there's 16 of them. I'll kind of go into and get ready for this, because now let's go into, I'll give a brief synopsis on each one and what I thought about it, basically. So let's take a bit of a break, and then we'll launch into it. So Dan, I've got the 16 Colossi, but I haven't got any names or anything like that.
Well, that's outrageous because I haven't played the game, and even I know what they are because I found this list on Google.
Do they actually have names then?
They all have names. So how about you introduce them under the names that you think of them as? Yeah. And I'll see what I think of your naming strategies. I'll rate your names out of 10 before reviewing.
Do they have? Are they like descriptive names or are they like Steve?
They're slightly more
like
slightly more
then.
Romantic than Steve.
Okay,
and magical.
It's like I think of like Dark Souls bosses where it's like called like the
Big One
Sleep or something like that. I made that up, or like Neo, Lord of the Underworld. People, Dark Souls fans are going to kill me because I've got it all wrong, but it's nothing like that, is it?
No, all their names just one word.
Just one word. Okay, good. All right, fine. That's a good hint. All right. Well, this first one, I'll tell you who it is, and then I'll kind of think of the name at the end. So the first one is fairly easy, but it's the first one you get. He's still pretty big, and one of the good things actually is that when you actually like jump on these guys, or when shit's kicking off, the music will change. So that it's not more like heroic da 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 as you're doing it, which is quite cool. And then if you fall off, it'll just stop. So like fade out, and then wait for you to get back on it. Go da 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 da, and it'll start off again, which is quite cool. So it makes you feel like quite heroic each time you're doing it. So the first one's pretty easy.
Thing? What's his MO?
His MO. He's just kind of wandering around, and basically all you have to do is just run up and jump on his leg and climb your way up, and essentially just stab him in the head. It's fairly simple. A lot of the I'll give you a clue. A lot of these bosses just find the head and stab them at the top of the head. That's a general rule of thumb. I'm going to just call this one. Let's call him Lenny.
Do you not already have a name from him? Like when you're thinking, "Oh, I'm going to fight him finally." You're not thinking, "Oh, I'm going to bash Carl's head in," or something. No. Lenny.
Bash Carl's head in.
I like Lenny. He looks like a Lenny.
Yeah.
He looks a bit like, ooh.
Yeah, I was thinking of Mice and Men, but sure.
Oh yeah, he's actually called Valus, and I give Lenny 5 out of 10.
That's good.
So if they do a sequel to this game, have they ever done a sequel?
No, I don't think they ever will. Yeah.
Well, maybe they could consider a Lenny.
Lenny.
They ever do.
Okay. It's quite a simple one. The second one basically looks like a horse. He's quite big. He basically lifts his foot up, and then you kind of shoot him under his foot, and then you basically climb on him, stab him in the head again. And I should say, like, also, like, the signs might disappear after you've had a couple of stabs, which basically means you have to go find another sign somewhere on their body, somewhere a bit more difficult to find. But yeah, I would call this second one Clippity Clop.
His actual name, here's a clue. It's related to the fact that he's on 4 legs.
Foursome.
Quadratus.
Oh.
Of course.
Quadratus.
Right, looks cool.
It's kind of sounding like Latin almost. Okay, all right, keep that in mind. So, all right, let's move on. The third one. So, the third one is basically pretty tall. He's one of the bigger ones. And he's got this like massive long arm sword thing that's kind of attached to him. That you basically get him to hit certain parts of the floor. You jump onto it. And this one is a bit more platformy. You kind of got to work your way around him, and I think to his back and all this. And this is where it's like important, where you're learning, like you need to like rest basically, and then reapproach things. You can't just go in full hog because your stamina's going to run out. And again, go for the head. But he'll really try and swing you off. I think he has another one in his back, actually. But
will he try and jerk you off as well?
He might try and jerk you off, but I think he might have a problem with that. The fact that, one, you're a little boy, so it's going to be small anyway. And two, you're about the size of his thumb.
Hands are probably too cumbersome. It'd be like trying to squash
He'd have to do it from really far away.
Like trying to squash a small cocktail sausage between two tombstones.
Yeah, well, you know what that feels like. I would call him Lankius.
No, his name is Gaius.
Oh, close though. In a way,
you're getting closer. You're sounding more epic. These names. Yeah, is he the guy that's on the
Lenny?
Is he the guy that's on the cover of the game?
Oh, I don't know. Actually, I don't know who is it. I can't remember who's the cover in the game.
This one looks quite iconic to me.
I think the guy on the cover is a bit later on. I think it's one of the later game ones.
He looks a bit like the Iron Giant or something.
One. Yeah, there's a bit of that.
He looks cool. I like this guy. He's my favourite so far.
Yeah, he's a good one. The fourth one. So the fourth one's like this. It's like a big dog horse or something. And you have this. It's more like a horse, I'd say. And you have this little mound in the middle of the area that you have to run through. And you basically have to get his attention. So he's kind of like, like nuzzling around. And then you run through it and you jump on his back. And then you climb over him and kill him from there. So he's all right. I mean, to be honest, he's one of the more forgettable ones. The one before was better. I would probably call this one, oh my God, it's
Son
like
of
a llama,
Clippity-Clop.
actually. When I think about it, Hyacinth.
The bouquet residence. It's actually Phaedra.
No, never would have got
Phaedra.
that. Fair enough. I should also say I made a little note here. Actually, there are actually shrines around which you can pray to, and I think they give you health or something. I don't know why I've just stuck it in the middle here. I've obviously made a note of it for some reason, and I might as well just say it. Number five. Number 5 is a good one, right? It's one of my favourite ones. So you're in a big lake now, and this is a flying one, and the flying ones are cool because they feel really fucking epic because you're obviously flying around.
Do you have to get on them as they're flying?
Yeah, so basically you have to get his attention and you have to time it just right so it swoops down to get you. And then you're basically able to kind of hang on to its wings as it passes through the water. And you have to be really patient because it does kind of like go on its side and try and make you fall off. So you can't be too ambitious early on and try and get all your stabs in at once because there's nowhere to stand up. Basically, you have to hang on as he's kind of like turning around.
If you kill it, you're going to die. You're going to crash out of the sky.
Yeah, but to be honest, like with all firstly, you're over a lake, so you just kind of land in the water.
Okay.
But with any of these, whenever you kind of fall, it's very rare that you'll die. Like you'll probably lose a lot of health, and maybe if you go all the way back up and fall off again, you might die. But yeah,
I'd be bricking myself though.
All right,
I'd be bricking it. It feels a bit counterintuitive. I'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah, fuck this guy. How am I going to do this? So it's very epic, and the fact that you're flying through the sky and you can see like the wind kind of rushing through you. That one's pretty good. So that's one of my favorites. I'm going to call it. Oh God, what would you call a bird? I don't know. Cassius.
That's what you call a blackcurrant or something, I think, isn't it?
I don't know.
I give that name. I give that 3 out of 10.
Yeah, it's not a great one.
I haven't been rating the other ones. I just suddenly remembered I was meant to.
Don't worry.
He's called Avion.
Oh, of course. Why am I fucking thinking that? I feel like it's an obvious one. Just not even trying. Just thinking of names that I like want to call my unborn children. Yeah, he's a good one. He's a pretty cool one. And also, like, it's when you hit that the first time you play, you're like, okay, this is different. Like, I'm into this. This is cool. Number 6, if I remember rightly, is a bit more difficult to get to. and it's kind of a bit of an obstacle course. This one, because you are inside, if I remember rightly, and you begin by like running away from it. So you're just climbing over these like walls, these different parts of the building, just trying to get away. And you get to the end, and you're basically like hiding in this little hidey hole. And he's like looking down, like, "Where are you?" And then that's when you run out and grab onto his beard. He's like, "Oh no, you've tricked me!" And you're hanging onto his beard and climbing up his face or whatever, his head. And yeah, so that's a bit of a funny one. He's fairly easy. Because once you realise that you just have to run away from him to begin with, and you're hiding, and you come out onto his beard, then it's fairly simple from there on. You just kind of hang on to his body and stab him where you need to, and yeah, it's not that difficult. But it's a bit of a different. It's not really a puzzle, but it's a little bit different from the other ones, and it's a bit of a quicker one as well, which is good for some of these. I would call him. Gigamesh.
This guy is called Barnaba.
Fuck! Why didn't I go with the beard?
So yeah, we had the two in a row
stupid.
that have just been French words. I like him.
Yeah.
He is cool, and he's got a fine beard.
He's got a fine beard, but to his own downfall, unfortunately.
There's a lesson to be learned there.
Yeah, exactly. If he just shaved, he'd still be alive to this day. Number 7. So number 7 is, you go up a tower, and then there's some kind of like sea snake. So it's another water-based one, and it's got these like electric fins. So some of these Colossi, have like electricity, I guess, like, or something. And this is the first time I think you come up against it. And you basically got to wait for it to break the surface, and then you grab onto the end of its tail, and it will pull you under, and you got to hold on, and that's quite cool. And
That's
then
quite scary.
Yeah, it is
quite
scary.
tense.
And then when it's kind of coming up, you have to kind of work your way up it, and then when you see it's about to go under again, you hold on, and you just slowly work your way up and try and do it. And you've got to be careful of the electricity and all this stuff. And so that's pretty cool. So that's one of the better ones again as well. I'm going to call it, Elias.
Quite
It's a bit
like
like an eel.
That's a 7 out of 10. I give that name. I like that one. This is really generic kind of like water beast name.
David.
Hydrus.
Yeah. Okay. Hydrus. Yeah. Fucking hell. Should have got that as well. Might as well called Aquarius or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 8. We're halfway there at this point. This was a cool one. So it takes a bit of a journey to get there, but it's this weird salamander thing that basically climbs the walls of this Colosseum, basically. And you basically have to hit it with your bow and arrow so that it lands on the floor, belly up. And then you basically got to like jump on it and stab it in the belly. But you need to kind of keep moving because it will shoot these like electric balls at you. So you can't stay in one place for too long, and you've got to go around and around to find like the perfect vantage point to shoot it from with your bow and arrow. So that's kind of like the puzzle element, and all the stairs are crumbling, and you've got to find, the right way to get up and down a level and all this stuff. So it's quite cool. It's one of the cooler ones, but it's fairly easy.
It sounds a bit different.
Figure it out. Yeah. I'm going to call it, something to do with the salamander. So like Salamax or something.
I like that. I give that 6. Not quite as good as Elias. I actually think it's better than his actual name, which is Kuromori.
Oh fuck! I'll never get that.
Kuromori, something death.
Something death. Okay.
That's my translation.
Yeah. Fair enough. Number 9. Number 9 is basically like a big turtle. It's in this epic dusty desert, and he's actually one of the more tougher ones because you've got these jets kind of spraying up from the ground that you have to be careful of, and he's like shooting all this electric shit at you as well, which you're on your horse, This is one of like the big horse ones where it's like you've got to keep moving. And so basically you have to kind of shoot at his feet, and when they're uncovered, when they're uncovered, you shoot at like the little, you'll see like it's not one of the stabbing points. Some of these like have weak points, which then will put them in a different position or do something that will allow you to climb onto them, if that makes sense. And then once you climb up on him, you climb up to his head and stab him. So it's really difficult to kind of get on him, and it makes it a little bit more tougher to actually execute. But it's all right. It's okay. I'm going to call him Shelly Ox.
That's a good one. Give that another 6. This guy, he's horrible. He looks horrible. He looks like a cross between a stag beetle and a warthog.
Yeah, he's massive as well. He's really big.
He's scary.
But like not tall, like just like a tank.
Bassaran.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Bassaran's boring. Jesus.
Yeah. Not into that.
No, not into that one.
I like Shelly Ock.
Shelly Ox, what we called it. Shelly. Number 10. Number 10 is all right. I find this actually the most annoying one, really, because you have to run with the horse and shoot your bow and arrow behind you at the same time. So it's quite tricky. It's basically like a sandworm. It's like Tremors, basically. And
cool.
Yeah, he'll kind of chase you from behind, and you see like his glowing eyes, and you've got to shoot him in one eye or both eyes. And then, you're able to kind of climb onto him and stab him and all this. So it's okay, but it's just a fucking arse to control, and it's just quite infuriating sometimes. Because you kind of got to get him to 1, chase you, 2, keep chasing you, 3, shoot him in the eye, very specific target as you're trying to push forward and looking backwards. So you're doing something which your brain isn't used to. I'm gonna call him Sluggimus.
Sorry, you froze.
I'm gonna call him Sluggimus.
That's a good one. I like that. Unfortunately, this is one where he hasn't got a exciting, fantastical sounding name. He's just called Dirge.
Dirge Bludge. Okay.
Dirge Pipe.
One. Yeah, he's one of the more annoying ones. I'm not too hot on this guy. Dirge.
Variety is the spice of life, though.
Yeah, is that a Dune reference?
It sounds like
well?
No, I just think it sounds like a very different kind of challenge with this one.
Yeah, it is.
Something different to do.
More, yeah, especially when it's like PS2 days, like things where it's like your controller, and those back in those days wasn't great. 11. So 11 is a weird one. So you get a few. There's a couple like these now that are a bit like a lion or a dog. And for some reason, when I did this the first time, it just took me ages because he can really hit you and he's really fast. So this is like, firstly, he's more your size. So he's not really a Colossus at all. He's fairly small, really, compared to the rest of them. But yeah, really fast. It's hard to get away. And basically, it took me a while to figure out that you have to get him to like knock a stick of fire down. And then you've got to wave the stick at him until he falls off the platform to the ground below and breaks his shell, whereby you see his weak point on his back. And then you've got to somehow climb onto him. But he's just so fucking fast. It's just really infuriating.
That sounds
and he shakes his head like mad when you actually jump on. So it's quite difficult to do.
That sounds quite convoluted. How did you figure out how to carry out all those different steps? Did you genuinely work it out, or did you look online or something?
No. Genuinely worked it out. Like, if you remember, like, I think back in those, I mean, the internet was there, but it wasn't like, it wasn't as readily available to do like walkthroughs or whatever. But and also, like, you don't want it really, do you? You want to figure out yourself.
That's what I was going to say.
It makes like when he because he just charges at you, and I remember like when he charges at you, and if you're in front of a post and the stick falls down, it's like a cut scene, so it will cut away to like be like, here's a stick, and you think, okay, well, I've got to use a stick. Yeah. But the thing is that sometimes when it falls down, it looks like it's on fire when it's not. It's just kind of like burning. So you have to climb back up sometimes, get the stick on fire. And as soon as you've got the stick in your hand and it's on fire, he will naturally just back away. And then you realise, oh, okay, cool, I'm supposed to do something here. And then you wave it about. And then you see him like backing up. And the only way really he could back up to is out of the actual building. So yeah, so it's just like trial and error.
I was thinking someone playing it now might feel tempted, if they're frustrated, just to look it up online, but then they're depriving themselves of the whole purpose of the game, right? Which is
and that's why you should never do walkthroughs for anything. Yeah. The only thing I would say use a walkthrough is on something like Dark Souls where you are seriously stuck. Then you're like, I have no idea where to go or what to do, and then check a walkthrough because it's purposefully obtuse. But yeah, something like that, puzzles and shit you can figure out. So what would I call him? I'm going to call him Rex. Something simple. A dog name.
Not Rexius?
No, just Rex.
Well, then I'm going to dock 3 points. So I'm going to give up 2.
Wow. What's he called?
Celosia.
Oh, sexy.
Sounds quite, How alluring.
Yeah. Salutations. Okay. Next one, number 12, is another water-based one. It's basically this big giant guy who has teeth on the top of his head. And it took me a while to figure out this one as well, if I remember rightly, because you've basically got to get on top of him, and then you hit the teeth to move him in the direction you want. So you hit the left teeth, he goes left. You hit the front teeth, he goes forward. Right teeth, right. And you get him to take you to the top of the platform. And once you get to the top of the platform, he will shoot electricity and stuff at you, if I believe that's right. And you basically hide, and then he'll like kind of lift himself up like out of the water, like, and put his feet down on top as if like to get a look at you or whatever. And then that's when you fucking jump onto him. And I think he's got it like in his belly, the underneath, and it's the only way you can get to that weak point. And you stab him. So it's a really, and you do that a couple of times and it's done. So it's a really tough way to figure out where that fucking weak point is. But yeah,
getting under a big fat sweaty pig.
Yeah, it's a bit more puzzly, but it does get a bit infuriating. And sometimes when you're bashing the teeth and you're like, no, this way, you fucking cunt, this way. And, it's not really doing what you kind of want it to.
Sounds kind of gross, this one, but in a fun way.
Yeah. It's a bit weird. Well, the thing is, it's like you don't actually realise their teeth until you start hitting them because they look a funny colour. And that's kind of part of it, is that some of these things signal it because they look like slightly blue or shiny or whatever. And you're like, I feel like I'm supposed to do something with this. Interact with it in some way. And yeah, it does work. I'm going to call him Connivus.
Nice one. Give that a 7 as well.
Thanks.
Up there with Elias. He's called Pelgia.
No. It's a big no. Big, hard, fat cock no from me.
Piglia, maybe, but not Pelgia.
No, of course not. Why would it be? It's ridiculous.
Stupid. Lucky 13.
Lucky 13. So we're coming on now. So this one is really epic. It's like some flying worm beast. And basically you have to shoot these pustules underneath that seems to keep it afloat, and it will come down, and then its wings will be in the sand. You have to ride along and then jump from your horse onto the wings, climb up, and then it raises back up into the sky, and then it's like da, 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 as you kind of try and make your way and stab it. So that one is a pretty big epic one because it's basically this big flying giant sandworm, and that's a really good one. That's one of my favourites as well. And I would have called it the Flying Dirge but rather than the one in the dirt. I'm going to call it Nautica.
Hello, this is Annie Mac from the podcast Changes with Annie Mac, and I'm here to tell you that the Mercedes-Benz A-Class is now available as a plug-in hybrid. The plug-in hybrid offers you the best of both worlds. You can go up to 44 miles, enough for you to commute entirely on electric power alone, and for the long journeys, the efficient petrol engine offers a quiet and comfortable place to listen to your new favourite podcast, hopefully mine. Search Mercedes-Benz A-Class plug-in hybrid to find out more, and T&Cs apply.
For businesses around the world, today isn't a restart, it's a rethink. That's why they're partnering with IBM. Retailers are keeping their systems up as millions of orders move online. Call centres are using IBM Watson to manage customer questions with AI. And solutions built on the IBM cloud are helping patients receive trusted information. Today we're rethinking how business moves forwards. Let's put smart to work. Visit ibm.com/smart/UK to learn more.
Yeah, I give it a 5.
Right.
Phalanx.
Phallic?
Phalanx, which is an actual thing, isn't it? It's like some military term from ancient Greece.
What? Penises?
It's not very exciting. It doesn't really capture the imagination. Does it? Like
Steve.
like Nauticus. Yeah.
Nauticus, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good one, that one.
Are these Colossi, are they getting harder to defeat?
No, well, this is it. Like, some of them are fairly hard. Like, that guy with the teeth wasn't particularly hard. But yeah, this next one was actually quite simple. Number 14. Well, it depends what you see as simple, but this one is basically a platforming level. Because you go to this like weird hidden city, like temple, like something from Tomb Raider or something. And it's one of those like dog things again, which is a bit annoying. It's like, I feel like I've seen this already. And basically you're using the environment. So you kind of get his attention and then you climb up and he's knocking down pillars that you're standing on, but it's actually helping you traverse the environment. And then basically you're kind of like above him. And you get to a point where some of the temple collapses on him and it's broken off his armor. And then that allows you to jump on his back and kill him. So it's a similar thing to like the one before, except this one is a bit more elaborate. And essentially you're doing a big circle around this little map, just trying to like, you know, stay on top of these things that he's like where he's trying to get you down off the platforms.
You have to trick him.
Yeah, and that's
Use your
fairly
brains
simple.
a bit.
That's just jumping at the right time, climbing things at the right time. And even if you fuck it up, you basically can just kind of go back on top of things and climb back up. It's no biggie. Yes, that's a fairly easy one, I would say. But it's
Poor little blighter.
Patience more than anything. Yeah. Now we're coming to the end now. Number 15.
Whoa,
Sorry.
whoa.
What would I call it? I would call it Templar because it's in a temple.
He's actually called Zenobia.
Shrug. Yeah,
Just nothing. I've got nothing to say about that.
It's a name. That's fine. Fair enough. Number 15, I think, is the one that's on the cover. And I love this one. This might be my favourite one of the whole thing because, for one thing, it is huge. It's massive.
Bloody
It's
hell.
one of the biggest ones.
He looks like a gorilla.
Yeah. It's epic. And you're basically in this like weird, like, I don't know what it is, like an aqueduct or something. And it's absolutely huge. And so when you walk in, you're like, fuck, this is big. And then to basically to kill it, you've kind of got to climb up the side of one of it. And there's like a little walkway right at the top, very thin walkway. So you get a real sense of vertigo once you're at the top there. Just like the scale of it is just like perfect. And you basically jump off onto him. And I think you stab him in the head or the shoulder or whatever it is. And then he'll throw you off. And then suddenly he's like really pissed off. And this one was like, and then this was like a bit tough because you're trying to, I remember like the first time I did this, I was like, I don't know where the fuck his next weak point is. Where the fuck am I supposed to stab him? And then you realize he's like slamming his fist down now, like trying to smash you. And then you realise it's in his hand. So when he puts his fist down, you've got to like hit his hand for him to open his hand. And then you grab on and then you stab him in the palm of his hand. And that's basically
scary
how you kill him.
You're walking into the jaws of death.
Yeah, literally. It's very easy to fall off him for a start. He does really like shake to try and get you off. And he's obviously a lot bigger. So every time, it's one of those ones where when you do fall off, it's a real fucking arse to try and get back on him again. Because you've got to climb all the way back up, get to the walkway, jump back off, and you've got to get the timing of the jump right and all this. So it's quite big in terms of scale. And that's a really good one. What would I call him? I'm going to call him Herbius.
I quite like that. He looks like a Herbie.
Yeah. What's his actual name?
He's called Argus.
Okay, not too bad.
Well, yeah. It's a bit
Could be his
bland. At least he's named after something cool.
Yeah.
So then,
my one,
once you've
Herbie.
done that,
yeah,
then you're onto the
final bit.
home run.
Yeah, and this one, much more of a lead up. As I said, like your horse aggro is now falling into the water. It's very stormy now. It's rainy. Everything's been fairly, light and sunny, but now it's like storm, pure storm. And what it is there's in the distance, there's this like, it's like the torso of a giant. It's kind of just like stuck in the ground. And you've basically got like trenches. And he is throwing these, fireballs or is it electricity or whatever, I can't remember now, at you. So you've got to figure out how to get near him. And it's like, it zooms in and out as you're playing. And you're just literally, and all the time, like there's some bits where you're like climbing around the side of like, I think it's like you're on a cliff face or whatever. And it pulls back and you could just see the giant thing there. And there's just tiny little you just trying to like get close to him. It's really cool. And it's all like dark and stormy and there's rain splashing and everything. So it feels like really massive. And then you basically are able to kind of get closer to him and you've got to figure it out. It's quite a cool puzzle. And you climb up on him. And then once you're on him, it's like a whole other puzzle now, because now you've got to like, there's bits where you have to like hit him and then he'll bring his hand around and then you've got to jump on his hand. And then when he swings it back up, you've got to time hitting another part of his body. So he brings his other hand round and then you've got to get the jump perfectly timed to jump on that hand. And then you've got to climb up him and stab him like on his head again. But it's such an arse to get right to that top and stab him. And it's great. It's a really kind of big, epic final one. I think the fact that he's like not moving and he's just kind of stuck in the ground is weird. One, because the rest of them have all been this like moving, feels like it's like independent thing, and he's just like stuck there. And I know why they did that in terms of, it's kind of like the point of this last level. But I was like, I don't know. It feels more like he's part of the architecture than a living being, if that makes sense. So it loses a bit of its humanity, I would say, a little bit, but it's still really, really big. And and that's it. And can you believe that the original plan was to have 48 of these?
Wow.
16 is enough. So yeah, that's it. That's kind of generally going through all the Colossi. What were your favourite? Oh, okay. Come on, you first.
I was wondering, do any of them have it where the weak point is their bottom?
No.
Well, they missed a trick.
That's your weak point.
I'd certainly get a kick out of that. We didn't say who he's called. Malice.
Oh, Malice.
The last one. Malice.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So I would have got that. That last one.
I like, just on appearance and what you've told me, I think Argus looks cool. The 15th one. Again? Number 15.
Yeah, he was my favourite, I think, as well.
With the hand.
Mm.
And good old Barber.
Yeah, Barber was all right, but it's just very short. He's one of the easier ones, so he doesn't really get much of the time of day. Kind of people just breeze past him a bit.
That's it's a shame, because he looks like a lovable tyke.
Yeah, I think, number 15. I like the flying sandworm thing with the pustules. That one was good. And the first flying one that you see is good. And then I think the third one where it's like he's got the massive arm sword thing, because that's the first time you sense the real scale of these things when you play it, and I think that still creates some awe. So that's definitely a noteworthy place there.
And
it's good.
What's your preferred version of the game?
It's funny you say that because I still like the PS2 one the best, I think, and that's because aesthetically because the colours are quite desaturated and the style of it is quite sparse and sparse. And yeah, just to have it, it's kind of got like those games back then on the PS2, they just have this like weird like filter on it, this weird like sheen. Yeah. And I think like back then on the PS2, it had like a dreamlike quality.
It's like a
almost.
fog.
Yeah, it felt like and it felt very mystical. And the fact that you couldn't see so far into the distance, it was really like super. And that's how they did it. Is that basically it was these like low res images far away. That's how they saved in memory, and it would literally jump into a different asset as you got closer to it, which would be a bit more detailed. But they tried to. So a lot of it's like fairly blurry, but yeah, it just felt like more like washed out and all this stuff than the later ones. And I think I prefer that PS2 version better because it feels more like dreamlike. Whereas the PS3 one was obviously kind of good, but because it was crisper, I was like, I don't really need to see it crisp. Like, it's not, there's nothing here for me to see really that needs to be crisp. And obviously you've got the actual monsters themselves, but it's like, yeah, okay, it just feels very clean. And I was like, it's almost too clean. And then with the remake is really good and all this stuff. But again, it feels like the colours are deep and rich, the textures, it's all super detailed. There's a bit more like life and a bit more stuff, but it just loses that like washed out. It feels more vibrant and more alive, which is great. But for me, I think I just prefer that kind of washed outness of the PS2 one.
And do you feel they maybe missed a trick in considering they rebuilt the whole thing from scratch in adding in any new, more modern elements, either in the gameplay or the design, or maybe new Colossi characters? Or do you think it was the right idea to be faithful and authentic?
Yeah, I believe they added some kind of like what they call quality of life improvements in terms of some of the movement and all this. But it's, I didn't really notice when I was playing it. It would have been nice because there's, I'll come on to this a bit later, they cut some Colossi, maybe bringing in some like new ones, which I'll talk about in Nerd Corner coming up. But I think, it's really good. It's a great remake. And for anyone who hasn't done it, I'd say, no harm obviously in doing the PS4 version because it's great. But there was something about back then and playing it for like the first time and it just being like super lo-fi that just really I found like more appealing. And that's part of its style as well. And I think, if it was made today and you said, right, we're going to do a massive open world, it's going to be fuck all in it, like it would never get made. Because it always has to be like dense and like realistic and a million things going on, which is fine and that's great and I love that as well. But for this, it worked because it had a certain mood, a certain tone, which I think was really like beautiful and sad at the same time.
Well, there you go, kids. You can't beat the good old days, and if you didn't play it on the PS2, you've missed the boat.
Fucking missed out, dickheads.
I'm quite interested in hearing about these ones that were cut. So
let's go on to that and go into Nerd's Corner. Hello, so welcome to Nerd's Corner. So Dan, as I was saying, there was some Colossi that didn't make it into the game. There was a lot that didn't make it into the game, but some were a bit more detailed than others.
Okay.
And I'm just kind of going to go through some of them. It's going to be a bit hard to describe this to people listening. I believe you're on a wiki anyway, so you can actually probably click through to the links and see them yourself. But yeah, I thought I'd kind of go over some of the ones and see if they would have been any good. So the first one up is called Devil, and he's basically like a winged demon.
Oh my God, that already sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Why would they not do that?
Yeah, and he apparently it was a small Colossus, and you would defeat it with your bow, which makes sense because you had to use your bow for the whole thing. And yeah, you'd hide on the grass and jump on its back. So you'd have to like try and avoid it to start with, and then creep up and climb on him. And you can still see some images of it in the game engine, I guess. And yeah, it's quite cool. But yeah, it's one of the smaller ones. It's still fairly big, but not as big. So it's worth checking these things out, by the way, guys.
I think he sounds cool. I think they should have gone. Why didn't they go with him?
Yeah, I think some of them just weren't fleshed out enough. Some of them, just when they were starting to play it, just didn't work, or it was just for some reason it was too similar to maybe some other ones or whatever. And I guess like they have to draw the line somewhere. Like it's only so much you could put on a fucking CD.
Is that why they went from 48 to 16? They just quite quickly went, it's not feasible.
Yeah, I imagine that's the case. We can't do 48. Well, also, like, and here's a bit of trivia I was going to go into later, but it was supposed to be multiplayer. So if the first stuff that was released, some of the videos and stuff, there was multiple people taking on a Colossi, one of the Colossi. And
cool.
I think the idea was that it was going to be, like a multiplayer experience, but obviously that didn't happen. They weren't able to do it. But it would have been interesting.
That's a shame. They should totally remake it like that. 'Cause that'd be really cool. Collaborating with someone, trying to take down one of these huge things.
Yeah. Well, there's a game out there called Monster Hunter World, which might be more up your street, which is a very deep RPG style Japanese game where you are literally working with other people to defeat huge, massive monsters.
Cool. Can you play as a horse?
I don't know.
I was thinking that'd be good.
I've never actually played them, but people love them. Can I be the horse? Get on top.
Yeah. You can be Wanda and I'll be
the horse.
Argo.
You've basically described the Jumanji 2 film, the new one that came out with The Rock. The next one is called Griffin. And yeah,
I can imagine.
Again, there's a proper... It seemed to be properly developed as well. And yeah, apparently you could defeat it by making use of its weakness, which was fire. And the idea was that you basically ride aggro your horse and ride around it because it's fairly big and whatever. Apparently it didn't like fire. So yeah, that's kind of that one, which looks, I think, pretty cool. Yeah, but apparently the reason it got scrapped was it got frustrating and repetitive, and it was quite easy to fall off.
What does he look like? Like a big griffin vulture sort of body of a lion?
To be honest, I really don't know what it looks like. It looks like a moose more than anything, or like a fucking house with some weird bits on. I don't know. It's really weird. I don't know how you describe it.
There's a moose loose who looks a bit like a hoose.
Yeah. The next one is a fairly unoriginal name, which is Phoenix. There are 9 of these, by the way, I should say. Phoenix seemed to be literally a bird, as you can imagine. And I think the idea, by the sounds of it, was that because it was on fire, whatever, you'd have to try and get it into the lake. So apparently they said that aggro probably would have been vital to this battle, because in any screenshots that were released, there's one dot on aggro to do it. And yeah, that's basically it. It's on fire, it's flying around, you got to try and get it in the lake. So that's Phoenix. That might have been an interesting one, who knows. The next one is Rock. And again, I don't know what this is.
Is it just a big rock?
No, it's ROC, is how it's spelled. And
yeah, these are more based on actual
creatures,
stories, aren't they? Yeah, the
Right.
rock is a big giant bird from is it Greek mythology, I think.
Okay, right. Arabic, it says here, actually, mythology.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's got a long neck. It's basically a long neck bird. Shoot it down with your bow and arrow, and
Chop its neck off.
Yeah, chop
it up.
bloody head off. So that was another one that was going to come out. And then the next one was Saru, which basically looks like a fat monkey with like really long arms. If that makes sense. Apparently it's also amongst fans, it's just called Monkey. And you basically had to defeat it by kind of hitting its hands or something so it'd fall onto the floor. And it would try and kill you by trying to drop onto you. So that looks, I don't know if that would be any good. It's not really a Colossus, I suppose. It would have been 33 meters, 108 feet. Is that high? Is that big?
It's pretty big.
Pretty big, isn't it?
I could have had him slip on a banana skin, smash up into a million pieces. Have any of these leaked? Have people actually played these?
It's a good point. Not sure. Don't know if it's in the actual. People have gone into the code or whatever. It's possible. The next one was Sirius, which again looks like the kind of horsey, doggy kind of ones. Fairly boring, to be honest. It just looks like a hog, they say. I've
seen it. We've seen him. Done it.
Just like the other ones. Apparently, you had to use rocks or something to defeat it, but I feel like we've already seen that in the other ones. So moving quickly on to Spider. Spider looks like one of my favourite ones, to be honest. It looks like the spiders from that film Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal. These huge, like towering, horrible, like little bodied, really massive legs. And I think it was too difficult to kind of climb up the legs to get to the body by the sounds of it. And yeah, you have to basically kind of hit its legs, climb onto its body, whatever it was. Don't really know why that was pulled. But I think it's something to do with the strategy of how to do it, and it just wasn't really working out, which I can
just too
imagine.
hard.
Yeah, might have just been too
the
difficult.
thin line between challenging and just not fun.
Yeah, it's true. Why have it if it's going to be shit? The next one I don't know how to say. Tobiu. This one is just a drawing. It didn't get any further than that. It's basically a big fish. It's an eel, and I imagine it would be kind of like that electric eel that was already one of the original Colossi.
Do you think some of these got superseded once they ditched them? They were like, we can put all these concepts together into one.
They might have just mixed it into another one. And again, the next one is simply called Worm. This one looks fairly cool. It looks a bit more like the Dune worms. It's got like a flower bulb head that I imagine that you'd probably have to shoot it in and try and kill it from there or whatever. It looks like it's fairly big, bigger than, Dirge or whatever, which is the other worm-like one. And I think the idea behind it was that because it hasn't got any eyes or anything, it would go by sound. And that's how...
Like Tremors.
Yeah, just like Tremors, that's right. And then the
exciting.
last one is Yamori A, which basically
Don't speak about my mother like that.
Yamori A, it's like Canadian, which was basically like kind of like the other dog / horse Colossi, but this one was supposed to be a bit more gecko-ish, a bit of like a furry gecko, and that's basically it on Nerd Corner. That was all. That was all the unused Colossi that I think is definitely worth kind of looking at the pictures of. The only other thing was that there was the soundtrack is often discussed because it is very good, and you might have heard some of that. Well, you would have definitely when I edit it together, heard some of the music already on that, and yeah, I think it's definitely worth pointing out that it adds a lot to the game itself. There was a release in 2005. You won't be able to find it on Spotify or anything. I think they're on YouTube though, or they should be anyway. And yeah,
go out and buy the vinyl, kids.
Yeah, well, that was it. It's 2005 soundtrack. It's released in Japan only, and I think they literally go for hundreds and hundreds of pounds. For quite difficult to get hold of. So if you do see one, then get it. Definitely worth getting, and it looks cool as well. And it is cool, and the music itself is cool. So Dan, that's all I've got for that. So should we do our final impressions? I think it's your turn. I tell you what, I'll make it an easy one. You do. I'll do mine for the moment. You just do your one in a big and the most giant voice that you can do. Big booming giant voice. My final impression is that this is one of my favorite games of all time, and I love it's one of those things where like games as art is often discussed, and I think this is very beautiful. It looks great. It has its own style. I like the fact it was going against kind of everything that was happening at the time. The sheer audacity and ambition of the game itself is commendable. And to this day, I think it resonates on an emotional level, on a gameplay level, and just as a really sweet work of media. And to be honest, like if you really push through it, you could probably do it in about 4 hours, maybe less. If you knew how to do it. It's not a long game, and it's a perfect length. And yeah, it's definitely one of the highlights of my gaming life, I should say. Dan, over to you.
Game looks good. I will play.
Is that it?
Yeah, well, I was channeling Barber. I thought that's how he'd probably speak. A man of...
It's a bit simple.
Yeah.
But does it get many visitors?
And a few words.
Man, a few words, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, let's check out some of the other reviews.
I hate it.
Reviews. So on Amazon, 87% of the people review this give it a 4 or a 5. So I thought let's delve into the other 13%. So all those reviews are just glowing, you know.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, I'll see what you think about some of these, Sam. So we've got The Coach, who gives a 1-star review under the title, "Good graphics a game does not make." My son played it a few times but got bored. He rode around on a horse for ages, doing not much, then climbed on some massive creature and attacked it. It was lovely graphics, but there didn't seem to be much going on. Still not sure what the plot was even now. Just killing massive things, I guess.
It's not wrong. It's not wrong. I mean, that's part of the beauty of it. And that's why it's like, you know, he's probably used to like fucking Call of Duty or something like that. Just like needs that kind of stimulation. It's like, what the hell is this? It's like giving someone who like, you know, I don't know, fucking reads just like the shittiest Marvel comics or something like Charles Dickens. Okay, so I know what's going on here. Where are the
I like the
pictures?
idea of this guy kind of like musing on the senselessness of war. Like, not sure what the point was, just killing massive things.
Yeah, it's something quite profound in that.
Yeah. Let's go to Philip, who also gave it 1 star. Here's his review titled, "Awful." I don't understand how some people claim this is one of the best games ever. I'm an avid gamer, have been for 20 plus years, and this game almost made me give up on gaming completely.
Oh, wow.
I'm a completist in every game I play, but this game I could not wait to finish and play Odyssey.
Oh my God, Assassin's Creed.
I liked the concept of the game, but the world was boring and difficult to explore. Your horse struggles to go anywhere effectively, and it's too scared to jump 2 feet. God. This game almost sucked the life out of me, and I can honestly say the worst game I have ever played. The worst game he's ever played. And he's played AIDS Kiss Chase. The controls are horrible. The graphics aren't great. The story is boring. It's extremely repetitive and easy. I honestly don't understand why people enjoy it.
I do kind of understand when people have a problem with the actual riding out to meet the Colossi, because that can get frustrating and it can be quite long. And that's why it's not like a perfect game, because I would say some of those bits are annoying. So I do kind of get it, but it's kind of missing the point of it a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of part of the build up and part of the tone that it's going for, that, you know, results in these big epic battles. And the idea is that you want to feel isolated and you want to feel like these colossi are isolated and like far away, and like, you know, they're not just like fucking hanging around. They're not just like,
yeah,
you know, they're all like within like 20 seconds of each other or whatever. You want to get the idea that it's something epic. There's a distance. There's a journey that's being had for each one of these. But at the same time, I can appreciate that some people get a bit annoyed about it, about the fact that it's rolling around with nothing to do for a while on some of these.
Did you play this game, would you say, to edify yourself or improve your general state of being?
No.
But at the end of completion, how would you describe how you were feeling and where you were in life?
I thought this was going to go into a review. This got so deep. I think it was. Oh God, I don't know what to say. I feel like it made me feel. The thing is, like, when it comes out at the end, and then, you know, you're a baby and all this stuff, it does kind of fill you with hope, because to that point, it's been it's been a whole downer, basically, in this weird way. You've got these like little bits of like, you know, glory kills of these like massive beasts, but essentially the whole thing is kind of playing down that and like you're the bad guy, basically. And so it's nice that it ends on it like a bit of hope, a bit of a nice thing. So yeah, it was nice that it kind of left me feeling a bit more positive about the world. Basically, there's from all this evil, there can still spawn some good.
That's good, but of course, you would be better off grating your nuts off on a rusty cheese grater. That's the advice of Up-D Harris.
Yeah,
that's his 1-star review.
I'd be better off doing that.
Well, that's what he thinks.
After a couple of kids now, I don't need them anymore anyway. So. Welcome to it.
I've got one final 1-star review, but I thought this one seemed quite articulate. So let's see what you think of this. This is Granty. 1 star. Slow is the title of his review. I gave up on this on the 3rd Colossus. The game felt repetitive already at this stage. The time wasting after missing jumps on the way to confront the 3rd Colossus, takes ages to swim all the way back to start climbing yet again, made me switch off for good. The game does have... I just imagine someone like switching off his life support machine. The game does have stunning graphics, but feels very linear. Doesn't really have an open world feel, more like an empty world.
Yes, that's the point. That's the thing, is this like mollycoddled fucking generation where like everything is like, what do you mean? Like, this is an open world. I can't decide what I want to do. What the hell? It's like, no, not all games. It's fucking like 13-year-old, probably more, like, what is it, 14, 15-year-old game. Like, yeah, it's not open world. You can't Idiot. It wasn't supposed to be like that. This is the most open world that it got. It was this in Grand Theft Auto 3. Like, that was it.
I've got one more. This is the top critical review on Amazon. So this guy was very confused. He gave it 3 stars.
Right.
With the title, "How can something so good be so bad?"
Right.
A question that you ask yourself every weekend, Sam, when you get back from your cottaging session and you're washing all that old tramp cum out of your anal passage.
I was dousing myself in holy water.
He said, "I cannot recall being so conflicted about a video game. On the one hand, I very much enjoyed the vast majority of Shadow of the Colossus. On the other hand, the overall experience is marred by some absolutely abysmal design decisions. Firstly, the good. The game is gorgeous. The scenery is genuinely beautiful. Riding through the environment is a pleasure for the most part, although the graphical fidelity is severely hampered by a glaring, horrendous flaw that I will get to in a minute."
Oh, okay.
It then goes on about some other stuff. I'll cut to the chase here.
Yep.
The camera in this game is beyond woeful. The camera.
Yeah.
Now, I don't remember your man having a camera. He's got a sword. He said, "It's terrible beyond words. I'm trying not to sound hyperbolic, but it is difficult because the camera is so ruinous to the experience.
That's
I was locked in a battle with the camera. For every single second of this game, it is almost as if the developers predetermined the best camera angle for every single spot of the environment. Want to look at that waterfall? Tough. The camera wants you to stare at the ground. Want to admire the beautiful scenery? Tough. Look over that way instead. Want to get a better angle on the boss? Tough. You're staring at its feet. It's frankly baffling that this game was released in this state and that nobody at any point in the production of this game decided to fix this. The instant you release the right stick, it just boings back to where it should be. I realise this is a remake of the PS2 game, and the developers would have wanted to stay true to the original experience, but let's be honest, the PS2 generation was not perfect when it came to camera angles. We have come a long way."
A couple of things on that. One, I might be wrong, but I believe they did update the controls, and I think, oh my God, I'll get lynched for this probably, but I think you could change your experience with the game and go back to the old controls. Maybe I might have completely made that up, but I do remember in the original one, the PS2 one, the camera and the controls were very finicky. They were infuriating. I don't remember it being a problem on the PS4 one, but obviously this guy feels like it's still there. But yeah, it's interesting because I'm remembering like these little bits. It's kind of rose tinted glasses a little bit sometimes for me. Maybe. But as these, when he talks about the camera, I do remember being a bit like, the camera's fucking annoying. But yeah, I definitely, it's weird because they talk about the graphics. It's like, the graphics are gorgeous, but I was thinking it wasn't really about that back then on the PS2. Like, they've made it look really good now. But yeah, I think that was my main problem when I was playing it again as well. I know I just kind of already said this, but when you can see like the mountains properly in the distance and you can see the fields and all this stuff, it's like, it's just too clear.
Seeing too much, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of lost the magic a little bit. Cool. That's some, to be fair, those reviews were fairly, I can empathise with some of the issues that were raised there, put it that way.
Yeah. Well, that's it for reviews. So are we on to picking next week's episode?
Yeah, we get to pick next week's episode and we're on to a movie.
I think, yes.
So
a moving picture. A motion picture.
So I'm going to press the reset button. Reset, here we go. And it is... hopefully you've got this. Morons from Outer Space. Is that the ITV? Not ITV. The not Mel Brooks. Mel Smith comedy.
And Griff Rhys-Jones.
Yes. Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing this actually then.
Cool. Yeah, I am too. A bit of background maybe to why I added this to the list.
Yeah.
I got, a few years ago, someone bought me a book as a birthday present called like Secret Cinema. I think it's called like Secret Cinema Volume 1. So I think he just thought, it's probably like a book about obscure films. But it's not. It's Volume 1 in a proposed series of books about Secret Cinema, and it's just about morons from outer space. So I sat on that book for a while, but I did read it a few months ago. And it was actually a really good book because it's more about obsession rather than about the film itself. There's a lot about, why am I writing this book? Why am I so obsessed with this film? And there's a lot about like what drives people, like with nostalgia. And there's lots of stuff about like really horrible geeky moments in his life where he's bidding on an auction for a Morons from Outer Space poster. And he's really like in the moment where he's like clicking, he's like weighing up all the priorities in his life. Like, why am I prepared to spend £300 on this poster? But it was interesting because I do remember seeing it at the time. I think I did get it out on video in the late 80s and I can't remember anything about it. But, it was a big production. It's got Smith and Jones and some other well-known actors, Jimmy Nail. But it's just completely forgotten.
He's not a well-known actor. Like UK, anyone over the age of 35 in England will probably know who Jimmy Nail is. I wouldn't classify that as a well-known actor.
He's an A-lister, isn't he?
No.
Jimmy Nail's like the English Nicolas Cage.
No. Not at all. He's done fuck all in God knows how long. Do you remember his music?
These crocodile shoes.
Yeah. Remember the other one?
Too. She's lying.
That's right. I love it. I love that you do both of them. I don't want nobody else. I love you. She's lying. I need somebody else, and that's true. She's lying. So those bits of him saying she's lying are the bits that he sang. It's like woman singing the bits. She's lying. That was the chorus. That's all you had to do. And I remember like the video was like him in a phone box or something, like looking to camera like, she's lying. Fucking bitch is lying. I'm telling you.
That guy, he's an alchemist. He's managed to make a successful career as an actor and a recording artist out of seemingly very little raw material.
So there was people out there that were like thinking he was hot. He's like the ugliest man ever. Really so ugly. He was in, I think, like I don't know if it's ever got overseas, but Off Winterson Pet was how he kind of made his name, I suppose, a bit more than anything.
That was his first like acting role. Apparently, he wasn't an actor until like into his 30s. And then he just went, there was a casting call and he just went and was like, yeah, I'm going to have that role. I think he's got a bit of swag about him. I think he's just like, I'm going to do that and make it happen.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, he couldn't make it happen for Morons from Outer Space, which is why it's kind of slumped into obscurity. But I thought good fodder for Oddcast.
Yeah, that's good. I'm just looking at his IMDb. He was in Evita. I never saw Evita.
No, me neither.
Can you believe that? He's in Evita.
It's crazy, isn't it?
He was in, he was in Still Crazy. Do you remember that old 1998 comedy thing?
Yeah, I didn't see it. But...
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I think this is it. He feels like a chancer. He's like, I'll give that a go.
That's basically it. He was in Danny, Champion of the World. If you remember that, that's 1989. Fucking hell. I mean, we're going back. It's just like, they did fairly well, I guess. But he was more known for his TV stuff. Minder he was in for a while. That was the other big thing he was in. But yeah, Off Winterson Pet was kind of a fairly popular TV show.
But the main draw here is that this was a vehicle for a comedy double act that was amongst the most popular in Britain at the time. Yeah, Smith and Jones. Mm. And Mel Smith, this actually killed Griff Rhys-Jones's aspirations to work in film, completely stone cold dead. And he never did anything in film again.
Right.
Whereas Mel Smith...
Yeah.
Mel Smith then used it as a launch pad to have a successful career very successful career behind the camera as a director and producer. His biggest hits being Bean and Bean Goes on Holiday. But big money makers.
Yeah, because they were always, this was at like a time in British culture where there was a lot of like double acts. So you had like Hale and Pace, who were probably the lesser known, I would say, of the team ups. Then, you had Smith and Laurie. But then you also had
Fry and Laurie.
Fry and Laurie, who are the more famous ones. Stephen Fry, obviously still big today. Hugh Laurie's still really big. Hugh Laurie was in House. That's how he got his name in America, really separate from all the British stuff. And obviously he's in movies and shit as well. Stephen Fry seems to be everywhere. Hale and Pace was the other one. And then obviously, it was Mel Smith and I've forgotten already. Smith and Jones. That's it, Smith and Jones. There were a few of those. Mel Smith, people that don't know as well. I think we spoke about this before, was also in The Princess Bride. He was the albino monk, if you remember. And that was kind of his like Hollywood thing, I guess.
It's Hollywood pinnacle. Yeah,
it's Hollywood pinnacle. He's funny in it as well. It's a bit weird. It's a really weird one because it's like they're just so... Like Griff Rhys-Jones is literally a poor man's Hugh Laurie, a very poor man's Hugh Laurie. It'd be interesting to see this because they should have been at the height of their career, surely.
Absolutely. It was meant to be, it was meant to launch them into film. And it's just a head scratcher why they chose to do, such a kind of like naff idea, really. Because, their sketch shows were usually based around like social observations and topical stuff. And instead they did like a parody of a B movie about, and just the title of it is ridiculous, right? So it's interesting to me from that angle of like what decisions were made. I need to see it to kind of get a look at the car crash, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it from us today. That was a rather long one. I didn't mean for it to go on that long. I'd be interested in what everyone thinks about Shadow of the Colossus and what we thought and whether we were wrong or right, which is probably most likely. And again, guys, do write in if you want us to add things to our list for us to play or watch or listen to. You can write in and we'll add it to our little database here that we'll randomly select stuff. Okay, that's it for us now. And we'll see you next time on ODDCAST. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to ODDCAST Movies, Music and Gaming. If you want to get in touch with us or get a movie, album or game put on our list to discuss, then email us at oddcastoddballs@gmail.com or a newwinterpodcast@gmail.com. This is part of a New Winter Podcast network, so head on over to anewwinter.net to check out our other shows. You can also follow us on Instagram at anewwinter, Twitter at anewwinter, and you can head on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/anewwinter. Thanks for listening and see you again soon.
Now TV are ready to entertain you this Christmas. Stream the latest and best blockbusters with a Now TV Sky Cinema Pass. Get the family together for Dolittle and Last Christmas. Enjoy seasonal classics like Love Actually. And rediscover your favourite heroes with the Indiana Jones and Harry Potter collections. Stream all these and more with a 7-day free trial. Only on Now TV. 18 plus UK only. New cinema customers only. Pass auto renews at $11.99 a month unless cancelled. Terms apply.